Before the world knew him as Jesus, he was born into a name that held the key to the divine. But no one ever tells you the truth about the name that was erased, rebranded, and hidden for centuries. What if everything you thought you knew about his identity was wrong? What if the most powerful, profound truth was lost in translation? Imagine the revelation, the unmasking of a 2,000-year-old cover-up that has changed everything we believe. The name Yeshua, a name meaning Yahweh is salvation, was once spoken with reverence, a name full of hope and divine promise. But somewhere along the journey, it was lost, translated, distorted, stripped of its power. Why? Why did the world shift from Yeshua to Jesus, and what did that cost us? In this video, you will uncover the hidden truth about the transformation of the name Jesus. You will understand why this change happened, what it means for our faith, and how we can reclaim the lost pieces of history that were swept away by time. It's time to ask the questions that no one dares to ask. How did the name of Yeshua evolve, and what does it truly mean for us today? This isn't just about names. This is about identity, heritage, and the very core of our belief system. Through centuries of change, politics, and the shifting sands of empire, the essence of Yeshua was altered. But now, we're going to reveal the secret that's been kept for far too long. Stay with us. Let the truth sink in, because understanding the journey of Yeshua's name will change the way you see not just his story, but your own. The original name of Jesus, the lost truth. Imagine being born into a name that means Yahweh is salvation. A name that carries the power of the divine, connecting you to the promises of old, to salvation itself. This was the name given to the man who would change history, the man whose life would reshape humanity forever. But somewhere along the way, this name was lost, forgotten, or worse, deliberately altered. The name Yeshua, once spoken with reverence and meaning, slowly faded away, transformed into something else entirely. Yeshua, a name that echoes through the ages, connected to Yehoshua, the great leader who succeeded Moses and led the Israelites into the promised land. The same name, Yeshua, held the key to the promise of salvation for all of humanity. But this wasn't just a name. It was a divine declaration of hope and deliverance. The change from Yeshua to Jesus may seem like a simple linguistic shift, but it's much more profound than that. Every time we say the name Jesus, we are disconnecting ourselves from the Jewish roots of the faith, the deep history, and the divine purpose embedded in the name Yeshua. What would it mean if we could rediscover this lost truth, the very essence of salvation spoken through his name? What would it mean for our faith to reconnect to the original promise, to embrace the powerful meaning of Yeshua that was meant to stir our hearts and guide us to divine salvation? Yeshua wasn't just a name, it was a living, breathing prophecy. And as the name transformed, so did the story. The once vibrant, deeply Jewish identity of Jesus was reformed to fit the context of an empire, a world in need of reshaping. But in this transformation, something was lost. A piece of the heart, a thread that connects us to the roots of our faith. It is time for us to rediscover what has been lost, to understand the weight of the name Yeshua. For in understanding his true name, we unlock the original power that was meant to change the world. This isn't just a question of language, it's a question of identity, of heritage, of the very foundation of salvation itself. When we say Yeshua, we are invoking more than a name. We are invoking the divine, the promise of God's love, the hope of salvation that is written into our hearts. The transformation of the name, the hidden journey. The journey of the name Yeshua from its Hebrew origins to its modern-day form, Jesus, is not just a story of translation, it's a story of transformation. A transformation that began over 2,000 years ago in the dusty streets of Judea and ended with the rise of a name that would echo across continents, cultures, and centuries. But what if that journey wasn't as innocent as it seems? What if the transformation of this name was part of a greater plan to shift the identity of Jesus, to align him with the dominant powers of the world at the time? The first step in this journey occurred when the stories of Yeshua began to spread outside the Jewish communities across the vast Roman Empire. The early followers of Christ, determined to share the message of salvation, had to bridge the language gap. Greek, the language of the empire, became the medium for spreading the good news. But there was a problem. The Greek language lacked the shesh sound from Hebrew. How could they faithfully translate the name Yeshua into Greek? In the absence of the sh sound, the translators turned to the nearest equivalent in Greek. Yeshua became Iesous, a name that still carried the essence of the original, but began to take on a form that would be easier for Greek speakers to pronounce. This was the beginning of the transformation. The once Jewish name was now being adapted for a different audience, a different culture, and a different purpose. But this was just the beginning. As Christianity spread throughout the Roman Empire, the need for a name that was both familiar and acceptable in Roman society grew. In the Latin-speaking world, Iesous became Iesous. The change was minimal, but it marked a crucial shift. The name was becoming more and more integrated into the fabric of the empire. For the early Christians, this wasn't just about a name. It was about survival, about finding a way to spread the message of Christ while navigating the political realities of the Roman world. The final step in this transformation came with the advent of the letter J. By the 16th century, the letter J had emerged as a distinct letter in the Latin alphabet, creating a new sound, something between Y and J. As a result, Iesous became Jesus. This final transformation gave us the name we know today, but it also removed any trace of the original meaning, the Jewish roots, the connection to Yahweh, the promise of salvation. It's easy to assume that this change was simply a matter of linguistic evolution, but could there be more to it? Could this transformation have been a conscious decision, a way of making Christianity more acceptable to the Roman Empire, to distance it from its Jewish origins, and to create a new identity for Jesus in the eyes of the world? This is the question we must ask ourselves. As we stand at the crossroads of history, we must decide whether to accept the transformation of the name Jesus or to rediscover the power, the hope, and the salvation embedded in the name Yeshua. When we say Yeshua, we reclaim the full, unbroken connection to the roots of our faith, to the divine promise of salvation that was first spoken over 2,000 years ago. And it's this rediscovery that can change everything. The name Jesus, a rebirth of identity. Imagine for a moment that the name Jesus wasn't always the name we knew. For centuries, the name Yeshua echoed across ancient lands, carrying with it the weight of salvation, the deep connection to God, and a promise. But what happened when that name, so full of promise, was transformed into something else? A name that no longer echoed the same sound, the same feeling, the same weight. What does that change mean for us, for our faith, for the identity of the man who would become the center of our salvation? As Yeshua became Iesous, then Iesous, and finally Jesus, we see how language and culture have shaped the name of the Savior. But was this transformation purely linguistic? Was it just a matter of convenience, of sound, of fitting into a new world? Or did it signify something much deeper, an intentional shift, a movement to distance Jesus from his roots, from the people he came to save? When we speak the name Jesus today, do we feel the same connection, the same power that was felt when his original name, Yeshua, was spoken in the streets of Judea? That transformation, though seemingly small, carried with it the power to alter the way the world saw Christ. But is that enough? Is the power of the name still there, or have we lost something important in the transformation? When you think about Jesus, do you think about a man who was deeply connected to his Jewish roots, a man born in the heart of Judea, or do you see someone more distant, more separated, someone who doesn't fully feel like the Savior, born of a people, of a nation, of a promise? This isn't just a question about history. This is about identity. And in the transformation of Yeshua to Jesus, we may have lost something more than just a name. We may have lost the connection to the roots of our faith, the very essence of who he was and who we are called to be through him. The power of language, why it matters more than we think. The name transformation didn't just stop at the surface level. As the name shifted from Yeshua to Iesous and then Iesous, something profound was happening. This wasn't just a shift in letters, it was a shift in identity. The language used to communicate the gospel was changing, but so was the cultural context. The Roman Empire, with all its power and reach, was shaping Christianity in ways that we often don't realize. For centuries, Iesous was the name used in the Latin translations of the Bible, and for 1,000 years, this name held sway in the Christian world. But then came the introduction of the letter J. A new letter, a new sound, a new way to pronounce the name. As Iesous became Jesus, the name began to sound different, feel different. But was this just a minor change, or did it signify something deeper? Did this shift in language and pronunciation serve to make Jesus more palatable, more accessible to the wider world, but also, in some ways, erase his Jewish roots? Consider the transformation from a name like Yeshua, rooted in Hebrew, filled with deep spiritual significance, to Jesus, a name that for many has lost that connection to the Jewish faith. The name Yeshua carries the weight of salvation directly linked to Yahweh, the covenant God of Israel. But when that name changes, when it is twisted through different languages, altered for convenience, what is lost in the process? For many, the name Jesus is sacred. It's a name that brings comfort, hope, and salvation. But what if we've been calling on a name that doesn't fully reflect the identity of the man who walked this earth? What if we've been disconnected from the roots of the gospel, from the very foundation of the faith that was built on the promises of God? It's not about invalidating the name Jesus. It's about understanding the transformation, the change, and what that means for us today. When we uncover the true history of his name, we begin to reconnect with the roots of our faith, the power of salvation, and the essence of the man who came to deliver it. This is a journey of rediscovery. A rediscovery of the man who was once known as Yeshua and the transformation of his identity, his message, and his name. It's a journey to reclaim the lost power, to reconnect with the deep meaning of salvation, and to honor the legacy of the man who came to save us. We cannot overlook the significance of the name change, because it's in understanding the transformation that we begin to understand who he truly was and what he truly means for us today. The conspiracy theory. Was the name change a master plan? What if I told you that the transformation of the name Yeshua to Jesus wasn't just a simple misunderstanding of languages, but a carefully orchestrated move designed to erase a deep connection to the roots of the faith? What if, hidden beneath the surface of this name change, lies a deeper purpose, a strategy to reshape the very identity of Christ to fit the desires of the powerful? Think about it. The name Yeshua was never just a name. It was a living, breathing declaration. It was a call to salvation, a promise from God, embedded in the very language of his people. But as the message of Christ began to spread, so did the need for Christianity to separate itself from its Jewish origins. Why? Because, in the eyes of the Roman Empire, any connection to the Jewish rebellion, the threat that arose from the Hebrews, had to be silenced. Christianity needed to fit into the empire, not just as a subversive sect, but as the official religion of Rome. And this shift demanded more than just changing practices. It demanded the erasure of the name that could still tie Christ to the Jews. Was it merely a coincidence that the name Yeshua, a name meaning Yahweh is salvation, was transformed into Iesous, and then Iesous, and finally Jesus? Was it just the result of language barriers, of sound and syllables that couldn't translate cleanly? Or was it part of a larger, more calculated decision to strip away the core identity of Christ and make him palatable for a Roman audience? Some say this was the greatest name change in history, an act that severed the ties between Jesus and his people, the very roots that carried his message into the world. And as his name shifted, so did the message. His Jewish identity was muted, his roots obscured. The name Jesus became more than just a word. It became a symbol of the Roman Empire, a name that could be owned, controlled, and manipulated by the empire that sought to reshape the faith. It wasn't about his true identity anymore. It was about what Jesus could become for the Roman world. But why? Why go through all the trouble of erasing his Jewish roots? Why, when his true name carried such profound meaning, was it discarded? Why was the world given a name that sounded so different, so far removed from the promise of salvation that Yeshua held in its core? Here's the reality. History isn't as simple as it seems. Names are powerful. They shape identities. And in the case of Jesus, his name was altered for a reason. The shift from Yeshua to Jesus wasn't just a linguistic accident. It was a strategic move that shifted the very perception of who he was and what he stood for. The name Yeshua was deeply tied to the Jewish faith, to the covenant between Yahweh and his people. To change that name was to change the relationship between Christ and his followers. It was to rebrand him in a way that made him fit into a Romanized, Hellenized world. The conspiracy theory isn't just a theory. It's a reflection of how powerful forces have shaped our understanding of who Christ truly was. The shift in his name is symbolic of the shift in the religion itself, away from its Jewish origins and toward a new, more politically acceptable form of Christianity. This wasn't just about adapting for the times. It was about creating a new identity that could be controlled, a new version of Christ that would be easier to sell to the masses. But here's the real question. Does it matter? Does the transformation of the name change who he was, or who he is to us today? Does the name Jesus still carry the power, the promise, the salvation that Yeshua once held? Or is it time to rediscover the name that was lost, to return to the roots, to reclaim the power and meaning embedded in Yeshua? When we look back at history and question the reasons behind the name change, we have to ask ourselves, what is at stake? What have we lost by accepting the name Jesus without truly understanding its origins? And more importantly, what can we gain by rediscovering the truth about his name, about who he was, and about the salvation he brought to the world? The truth isn't always what we've been told. Sometimes it's hidden beneath the surface, buried in the history we've been taught to forget. And now, it's time to dig deeper, to uncover the lost truth, to find the real power behind the name Yeshua, and understand why that name still matters today. So, what's the lesson in all of this? It's simple. Never accept a version of history without questioning it. The name you speak carries more power than you realize. The history behind it can change everything you believe. It's time to rediscover the truth. To dig deep into the origins of the name Yeshua and see what it reveals about Christ, about salvation, and about the journey we're all on. As we close this journey through the name Yeshua, we must reflect deeply on the power of what we've uncovered. The name Jesus, as we know it today, has been molded, shaped, and transformed by history. But what does that transformation mean for us? What does it say about who we are and who he was meant to be. The name Yeshua was more than just a title. It was a living testament, a declaration of God's promise to save his people. And it was a direct link to the divine, to Yahweh, to salvation itself. But over the centuries, that name evolved. It became Iesous, then Yeshua, and finally Jesus. Each step of this transformation separated us more and more from the original meaning, from the roots of our faith. We've heard the name Jesus so many times that it has become synonymous with salvation. But the truth is, the name we speak today is a shadow of what it once was. What's at stake here is not just the name, but the very identity of Christ. Yeshua wasn't just a historical figure. He was a connection between heaven and earth, between humanity and the divine. To lose his name, to lose its meaning, is to lose something essential about who he was. The name Jesus is important, but understanding the roots, the deep, sacred significance of Yeshua is key to fully understanding the man, his mission, and the salvation he offers. When we reconnect with Yeshua, we reconnect with the truth of salvation, the truth that was meant to transform the world and lives of those who believe. Imagine for a moment that the name Jesus has been stripped of its original power, but in rediscovering Yeshua, we bring that power back to life. We restore the connection to the Jewish roots of the faith, to the original promise, to the salvation that Yahweh promised his people long ago. This is about reclaiming the truth of our faith, reclaiming the identity of Christ, and restoring the meaning that was lost in translation. This journey isn't just about names, it's about identity. It's about the truth behind the name we've all come to know, and it's about rediscovering what has been hidden for so long. The name Yeshua is more than just a linguistic accident. It's a message, a prophecy, a divine connection to salvation. And by understanding that connection, we unlock something far greater than a simple name change. We unlock the power of salvation, the power of restoration, and the power of understanding who Yeshua truly was. In all of this, there's one undeniable truth. Yeshua means Yahweh is salvation, and Yahweh hasn't changed. He is still the same, and the salvation he offers is still the same. It's not about a name, but about what that name represents. When we say Yeshua, we're saying something more than just a word. We're saying a promise, a divine covenant that was made with the people of Israel, and one that extends to us all. So I encourage you today, don't just say the name Jesus as a word. Say it with the understanding of what it truly means, the power it holds, and the history behind it. Say it with the recognition of what has been lost, but also what can be regained. Reclaim the truth of Yeshua, because in that truth is salvation, healing, and the divine connection to our Creator. If this video has spoken to you, if it has helped you find some light in the darkness, if it has stirred something deep within you, then I ask you to support this channel. Your like, your subscription, your engagement, they aren't just numbers. They are fuel for this journey, for the mission to share the truth of Christ, to share the good news with the world. Every moment of your support helps spread his message, helps reignite the truth that has been lost. If you feel this video has brought value to your soul, if it has helped you discover more about the name of Yeshua and the power behind it, please consider showing your support in whatever way you feel led. Your energy, your contribution, whether small or large, is invaluable to me. Together, we can continue to explore the depths of his word, to bring light to those who seek it, and to share his truth with the world. Thank you, from the depths of my heart, for being a part of this. Your support means more than you can imagine. And as we continue this journey together, remember, when we speak the name Yeshua, we speak the name of salvation. We speak the name of the Lord who saves, who heals, and who redeems. Let's keep that truth alive, let's keep it growing, and let's share it with the world. Yeshua is salvation, and it's time for the world to know it.